Welcome to ESVN, the Emma Sports Vigeland Network show. My name is Emma Vigeland. Subscribe, put on push notifications. We are back, baby. In the midst of the playoffs, we have all of those recaps for you. We're going to wax poetically about Jimmy Butler, Matthew Tkachuk. We're going to actually listen to the people of Arizona and tell the Coyotes, get the hell out of there. NHL, start fresh, and more. YouTube.com/ESVN show. Rate us 5 stars. Like this stream. Comment. All that good stuff. Hello, Bradley Alsop. Welcome back.
Hey.
Hey.
What's up?
How are you?
I'm okay. I did a lot of socializing this weekend because I'm really popular.
Oh,
and,
yeah. I hear.
I have a bit of a frog in my throat, so you'll have to indulge my dulcimer tones.
Oh, well, that just gives me an opportunity to talk over you.
Yeah, as you should.
So, we will be taking calls today a little bit later. The number is 646-257-3920, because I know El Concepcion really wants to talk about the Spurs winning the lottery, and we will get to that. But I was on vacation last week, unable to do the show, so that's why there was no ESVN last week. So we got to make up a little bit for lost time, and let's jump right into it, shall we, Bradley?
Let's do it.
All right.
Let's go head first.
Head first, dive right in. So we're gonna just talk about what's happening in the NBA to start off. I mean, man, the Celtics just did not fight at all in Game 3. That's what it felt like the entire time for me, at least. I mean, I wasn't able to catch all of it because I ended up seeing a movie with my mom as a delayed Mother's Day thing. We went to see the Are You There, God, It's Me, Margaret. It was very adorable. But putting that aside, yeah, I mean, I watched like the rest of the condensed game later on, and it just felt like they had no fight. I mean, the Heat have been out efforting every team that they play against. I mean, even the Knicks, who honestly have played them the best out of any of the teams in the playoffs so far.
At least a few of the, like even game. Was it Game 6? Even Game 6 was a 4-point loss.
I mean, the Knicks, like, at least, you know, they're kind of similar in terms of the style of play that they want to play, but the Knicks just don't have the shooting, and they don't have someone like Jimmy Butler, is just
a volcano.
This is one of the greatest playoff runs I've ever seen in my life.
Absolutely, I agree. I was saying this to you before, and someone mentioned this on Twitter, so it's not an original thought from me, but It is reminiscent to me almost. Of course, this was contingent upon the Heat winning the finals, if they even make the finals, which I think is pretty likely. It's been a huge statistical anomaly if they don't make the finals.
It's literally never happened.
Literally never happened in the NBA, so most likely. However, if they do and they win, this almost would be reminiscent to me of like the Dallas Mavericks 2011 championship, where like a team not necessarily ahead or proportionate in quality to their opponent, that being the Heat in the Mavericks case, just really handily, capably beating teams that seemingly on paper are better than them. And they've been doing it the entire playoff cycle, except for losing the play into the Hawks, which was the most baffling thing of this entire
wasn't it the
situation.
Bulls? Or no. Which one did
they lost to the Hawks and then beat the Bulls?
Bulls. Gotcha. Well, that should have happened. I mean, the Hawks is a little bit more justifiable, but either way, it doesn't make any sense given how they're playing right now. And I mean, Jimmy Butler rolled his ankle in that Knicks series and still played like he was on fire the entire time. And in this Game 3, him and Adebayo kind of had more pedestrian games. I mean, even when they're not touching the ball, it's about the attention that Butler in particular attracts. But Gabe Vincent had a great game.
He had 29 points.
Yeah.
And I've been just so unbelievably impressed with not just the stat lines of these guys. Again, by these guys, I mean the undrafted players on the Heat who have been making a huge impact on the floor. Gabe Vincent, Duncan Robinson, who, by the way, Started off his college career at Williams College. Was literally like a D3 liberal arts college student.
Wow, that was
And
my first choice. I didn't get in.
Oh, maybe Duncan took that spot before he transferred to the University of Michigan. Gabe Vincent, undrafted free agent out of UC Santa Barbara. Max Strus, another undrafted free agent out of Michigan. Caleb Martin, undrafted free agent, who apparently, weirdly enough, not sure if you saw this sideline report, but apparently the rapper J. Cole texted Eric Spoelstra or texted Karan Butler, the assistant coach of the Miami Heat, being like, "Hey, my man Caleb Martin's is unsigned. He's really good. Like, you should give him a tryout."
That's how it happened?
Yes, he gets a tryout. He goes to Miami. He earns a two-way deal, and he's one of their impact players off the bench.
Well, to your point, I saw something on Twitter today that Cody Zeller is the highest drafted player on the Miami Heat. And
Which
I think
is
he was
absolutely wild.
40th or first overall. And of the way that the guys like look on the team, not to stereotype, you would think he's the guy that's the lowest drafted.
Zeller looks like a tree person from the Lord of the Rings.
He really does.
That's really his vibe. An ent. But what all that is to say is that Gabe Vincent had 29 points.
Sorry, he was a first round pick.
Zeller was like maybe the third or fourth overall.
Correcting
pick
myself
by the Hornets.
Wow.
Yeah, 2012 draft, I think.
Yeah, he looks different, and I realized it's because he's bald.
Absolutely.
Yeah, okay.
And wearing rec specs.
Yes.
So all of it is to say about those undrafted guys is like Vincent had 29 points. I think Duncan Robinson went, I think, either 6 for 8 or 7 for 9 or something from behind the arc. Martin and Strus, while having less point totals, were basically, I think, plus 20 and plus 18 in their minutes. Like, these guys are why I bring up the plus minus, because these guys aren't just scoring well, they're also very clearly making a positive impact on the floor. Like, they're high level players and how they make the team operate too.
And that's Spoelstra. I mean, like,
absolutely.
Let's be real. But
that's him instilling some sort of mindset and some sort of fight and willingness to compete in the way that they compete throughout every guy on that roster.
Yeah, I mean, let's pull up this video of Jaylen Brown here because, I mean, look, I like Jaylen Brown, actually. I have no beef with him in general, but and I like the way he plays. But I found this to be a puzzling statement to say publicly because, like, as Bradley's saying, when we're talking about the game, just as like, you know, two podcast people just shooting the shit, it's fine for us to talk about how these guys are a little more unheralded or lower in draft status, right? But for your opponent to say this is just giving the Heat more bulletin board material that they don't need. This is what Jaylen Brown said after they lost Game 3.
Yeah, we struggled to get stops, but to their credit, they playing well above their means. They balling right now, and I gotta give them respect. Gabe Vincent, Martin, Strus, Duncan Robinson, you know, guys that we should be able to keep under control are playing their ass off.
So, but you didn't keep them under control, but you're not keeping. So that means that they're not what their draft status is.
Yeah,
and
well,
they're
I
all NBA players, and that's like entitlement, honestly, on the part of the Boston Celtics that I'm not even attributing to Jaylen Brown. But you got to get that out of your locker room. Just because the Celtics were masterful in, was Jaylen Brown drafted because of that insanely lopsided trade to the Nets when they sent Durant there? Either way.
No. It was I believe he was before that. I could be wrong, but I thought he was before
I'm
that.
showing my gaps in my NBA knowledge. It's not as
I think the KD trade was after he was
Either way, what they did, how they were able to draft so highly to get Tatum, and they were able to draft Jaylen Brown, like on paper, what the Celtics did is how you build a superstar team, right? But that's, I guess, in their mindset still, and that's toxic because it causes you to underestimate the 8 seed here and be like, well, these guys unheralded except for Jimmy and Bam maybe, but like, I mean, Kyle Lowry, he's not who he used to be for sure, but he's coming off the bench.
Even Kevin Love. Same thing.
Those guys know how to win. Those guys have rings.
Absolutely. And the one thing I was saying to you before the show too is like, I think I understand the sentiment in the sense that where he's coming from, down 3-0.
Wait, did I say Durant or Garnett?
Yeah, you said Durant.
God damn-
Kevin Durant. Durant. You said
Damn
Durant.
it, I'm so
Oh, you meant
rusty.
the Garnett, the KG trade.
Yes.
That's possible
I
because that
meant
was before.
Garnett.
That was before.
I meant Garnett.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, I think yes, okay, so people in the YouTube chat are confirmed it was that Paul Pierce.
That's what
Kevin
I was
Garnett,
referring to.
Jason Terry
I did
trade.
not think
Right.
that Durant was traded from the damn I'm getting a little rusty here.
So, but what I was saying to you before is like I understand in the sense that I think this statement from Brown is coming from a real like severe place of frustration that like this team with this level of expectations, who were the standard bearer in the Eastern Conference last year, who also beat this team in the playoffs last year, and these rosters aren't significantly different, and yet now they're down 3-0 this season. I think to him he's almost having this thought of like, how are we, when on paper we clearly should or did at some point have a talent deficit over these guys, or they had a talent deficit towards us.
Right.
These guys like Gabe Vincent, who even, of course, I think what he's sort of saying, which you're alluding to, is he's absolutely underestimating these guys. He's not thinking that Gabe Vincent is going to go for 29, 11 for 14 from the field, 6 for 9 from 3. He's not thinking Duncan Robinson, who was kind of an afterthought going into the late regular season, who was sort of a real liability on defense, which, not for nothing, that's a big knock against the Celtics, is that they are not doing anything to expose that. They are not doing anything to hunt Duncan Robinson on defense. And for what reason? That's to be determined, because that to me is a coaching problem.
Yes.
I don't blame them. I don't blame them for that. That's a scheme that should be, anytime we can get the switch on Duncan Robinson on Jason Tatum, we are spamming that play. And they're not doing it.
Yeah.
And the same thing goes for even roster construction, or roster management in this capacity. For some reason, which is completely befuddling to me and has been all 3 games, they are very, very rarely playing Robert Williams, who was their most rangy, switchable defender and a freak athlete. They are Al Horford has had a great postseason. He's a week away from turning 38 years old.
I know.
And he's getting run off the floor by some of these guys. It shows
an insecurity in coaching that they want the vet out there as opposed to coaching up your other guys.
They need to switch exactly. They need to switch something up, but it seems like they're nervous or reticent to do so.
Well, at this rate, they're gonna get swept. I mean, Game 4 is in Miami, and like I've seen no signs to indicate that the Celtics are going to be able to come back emotionally from this. This is
where the recriminations from something that happened a long time ago. This is where the recriminations of something that happened a long time ago basically come home to roost, because of course we spoke about the Ime Udoka situation. We can totally understand from a like team perspective, from a morality perspective, of doing the thing of getting rid of him, because he clearly had conduct that, while still relatively nebulous, because like we don't really know exactly what happened, because they are very hesitant to give any sort of details about the situation, led to him not coming back to the team. Here comes Joe Mazzulla. And also notably, it's a combination of Ime Udoka obviously getting let go. Now the Houston Rockets head coach, go figure.
Sure.
Will Hardy, their best assistant, going and getting hired by the Jazz and having a pretty great season with the very talented relative to the rest of the league Utah Jazz team. And in comes 34-year-old Joe Mazzulla, who, just to get put in perspective how old and experienced this guy was, in the last year of when Joe Mazzulla was playing college basketball for West Virginia, you know who knocked him out of the NCAA tournament?
Who?
Marquette University with Jimmy Butler.
Oh my God.
Like,
that's hilarious.
That's how young this guy is. He was literally on the team in college who got knocked out by Jimmy Butler in the Marquette Golden Eagles.
That's amazing.
Like that's it. Like it just goes to show the level of, one, inexperience he has as a coach, and two, a huge amount of responsibility being put on this guy to basically lead the team that was in the finals last year to repeat their way through the Eastern Conference. Like, it's not that I don't want to take too much responsibility away from him. I just think this has not been the best in my opinion, way for this team to like go about either replacing or augmenting the situation post Udoka, because it's essentially the same team. The difference is the coaching.
Yeah.
This is essentially the same roster. There's very few differences in this roster.
But I just do. I mean, yes, it's just he's being outcoached every night by Spoelstra. Every night. I mean, Spoelstra is out coaching everybody, but the gap has been super noticeable in this.
And the one other thing I'll say, there was this, I don't remember the exact.
Do you want to crap on Grant Williams for getting in Butler's face?
Oh, well, I mean, so but
that was so dumb,
and this
dude.
and this is I think to your point about what Jalen just said in this clip that we watched, is it's obviously clear that a lot of the things that motivate this Heat team are being underestimated, are being undervalued, and proving these guys wrong.
Well,
like,
can we pull up that analytics bullshit?
Yes,
from not to cut you off,
no,
but this kind of feeds into what I'm saying. So like there's a lot of analytics that is really important. Oddly, I mean, I find hockey analytics to be some of the most advanced or easiest to kind of see on the ice. Football, I think, is far behind. I mean, some of the PFF scores that you see, it's just total garbage. And it does not kind of take into account that there's context here. I really despise how some of the analytics community boils down these human beings into numbers and digits and things on a spreadsheet that are incalculable in real life, in my opinion. Some analytics are good and they have value for sure, but some of it's trash. And this ESPN prediction here, let's put this up, like got roasted at the time. Let's scroll down. The Miami Heat have a 3% chance of reaching the NBA Finals according to ESPN analytics, and they put this up there, 3% to beat the Celtics. And obviously we know the Heat might sweep the Celtics, but they're definitely going to win the series. I'm pretty positive of that. And this was similar to the ESPN's draft model, which had...
I was literally thinking the same thing. The Will Levis thing, where it was like, Will Levis had a 99% chance of being drafted night one. It's like, how can you possibly say that with that much certainty?
This is all rumor. In that instance, it's just like what you're being told by people on teams that want that information out there, or his agent. Either way, you're getting gamed. For this, though, this is directly outcome and sports related. So ESPN, this has nothing to do with the Miami Heat. This has to do with your analytics model. They didn't have a 3% chance going into this. How were you calculating that? And honestly, I just think there's a whole kind of cottage industry of analytics sports people that want to use numbers to make the game more digestible for the average fan, as opposed to taking in specific contextual points that are unable to be boiled down into a mathematical equation or into numbers, including Jimmy Butler playing with more heart than I've ever seen. And I mean, this is one of the greatest playoff performances I've seen from one player in my life. And that is not represented in the 3% there.
And also, I think maybe part of it, obviously I'm not even thinking about this graphic, is kind of like, it's almost, obviously people were crapping on it or dunking on it, I think, with like rightfully so, but it's kind of frivolous to a point where I don't know what this clarifies or illuminates for anybody in terms of like how, especially, and the reason I say this too is not just because of the numbers themselves, or the percentages themselves. This tweet has no context.
Yeah.
How are they devising these percentages? What are the variables? What are the standards that they are using for these probabilities? I'm sure it's there, it's somewhere, but that context is completely removed from an ESPN tweet with a little graphic. You know what I mean? But like,
I mean, we encounter this in politics too. It's like the Nate Silverification of political commentary.
We'll see top headlines about certain polls. Then you go to the bottom where they say where the margin of error, how many people were polled. And it's like 400 people in two towns in New Hampshire. It's like, okay, well, I mean, I haven't learned anything then.
There's no substitute for watching the game. Like and I think that there's this whole sports industrial complex where they want to create, and it's not as nefarious as like the military industrial complex. I'm just using it as a shorthand, but they want people to be consuming more and more content. And
totally.
It's like, here your favorite team actually isn't that bad. Look at how this player is scoring and efficiency and stuff like that. Where for the most part, just watch the game. Everybody that really understands the games, the coaches, the executives, the players, they don't care about this crap. Because what it really is it's a spark notes or an attempt at it for people that want to be informed, but it leads to this like again, this culture in sports that really bothers me where it's all focused on numbers and stats because people want to be able to converse but don't really want to watch.
Well, and
or don't have the time, but that's fine. Then you don't need to be mega mind about it.
Right, and also I will say I've always thought this a little bit about there have definitely been some people on Twitter who've talked about this as well. I imagine I actually think there might be some sort of scholarship on this, but I think as much as I appreciate, I'm not anti-analytics in the way of like I'm not like some sort of like old man yells at cloud like the numbers are making the game worse. Like I don't think of it that way, but the one thing I do think is there's clearly a disparity in terms of who is in the room to be like an analytics person in front offices, where I think you can clearly see that there is a racial disparity, a socioeconomic disparity. It's like, oh, like, are you attending the Sloan Conference at MIT or Harvard, or like, are you like, where did you go to school for data analytics? Where did you work before you were the analytics guy for the Spurs or whatever? I also think too, it's part of this larger movement, I think, where we kind of not only talk about sports, only flattening sports into only the context of like numbers on a spreadsheet or numbers on Basketball Reference or something like that, as well as how we sort of talk about players as like assets.
Yeah.
Like, oh, that
Exactly.
great contract. That's a great rookie contract because that guy's getting paid such little money. He's so valuable because he's getting paid so little.
Yeah.
You know, like, great to have a rookie quarterback because if he's awesome, he's great. He's also cheap. He's also not making a whole lot of money. Like,
then Patrick Mahomes wins the Super Bowl last year, or Matthew Stafford won the Super Bowl the year before.
Like, I obviously love contract talk. I love talking about this stuff, but I think it does definitely it renders people and people playing a sport more of like a intangible, less tangible like product. It becomes like a stock or a bond as opposed to like a person playing sports.
That's what I don't love.
And the one thing I wanted to say just about Butler as well is that one thing that I think is ineffable and intangible to him when he plays is that he also defies some analytical priors, or defies some ways to sort of quantify him with like numerically necessarily, is because one, he takes a lot of mid-range shots, and two, he takes immensely difficult mid-range shots.
Oh yeah.
So that's a testament for me to him as a player in that he can operate in a phone booth. He does not require essentially any separation. It doesn't really matter who's guarding him to get a shot up and make shots. That to me is a little bit more ineffable than like he's taking like high quality, high percentage shots. He's not sometimes. What he's doing is he's making them, and that's hard to quantify. And of course,
and you can't quantify Spoelstra's effect on the team either.
Right,
I
exactly.
mean,
that coaching is also a little bit of something that's more nebulous that can't be necessarily numerically evaluated.
Yeah,
there's not like a percentage that Pop or Spoelstra provide to a winning team necessarily.
Exactly.
It's more of like a culture itself is nebulous.
Yep. I agree. So we could have just roasted ESPN analytics, but we actually had kind of a decently conversation about it.
But this is the Will Levis thing is funny in the context who it is. It's like, how can you from what are the what operational metrics are there to be like Will Levis? There is only 1% that he won't get drafted. It's like, how? Tell me how.
Well, I mean, let's talk about the Nuggets now though, because I know people are like, ew, Nuggets Heat, but I actually love the Nuggets Heat final.
Oh, I think it'll be awesome.
I mean, it's this incredibly deep team versus, I mean, a team that's playing above its stature but has a superstar in well, it's the two best players in the playoffs facing off in Jokic and Butler.
And honestly, look at, if you'll recall our conversation from like a month ago about the Embiid Jokic MVP dialogue. Really wild to be where we are when a lot of the reason why people were saying, oh, Jokic, like, Can't give him a third straight MVP. He's never really done anything in the playoffs. He's never really been able to perform in the playoffs. Oh, interesting that the best player in the world, when his team is completely healthy, is just mowing down his competition.
He's like getting a triple-double like every night.
His quotidian pedestrian games are like 28, 12, and 15.
He's
assists.
Unbelievable. And Jamal Murray has been lights out shooting. I mean, behind the arc, it's like
him and Michael Porter have been playing exactly the way that everyone has wanted them to play when healthy. Michael Porter is showing that he is one of the most lights out perimeter shooters in the game. Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, I'm sure the Lakers are a little annoyed that they don't have that guy on their team anymore because he's just been playing quality. He's been playing quality minutes each game. Basically, Bruce Brown, a Nets cast-off, has been playing unbelievably well. Christian Brown, one of their rookies that they drafted last year. It's an incredibly deep team. It's an incredibly well-run team. It's a well-oiled machine. They are playing the best team basketball in the playoffs.
And it shows how, honestly, Jokic is on just such another level than someone like AD. I mean, they've moved AD off him a little bit, but like
they've mostly realized that Rui Hachimura is having a better chance of defending Jokic than Anthony Davis is, which goes to show that it's hard to put too much weight on Anthony Davis to be the catalyst behind a winning playoff team.
Exactly, but you thought that of all of the bigs in the league that this would have been a more intriguing matchup than it's ended up being right now.
This is my
it just shows that Jokic is on this another planet right now.
This has always been my frustration with Anthony Davis, is that when they made the bubble run in 2020, he was literally playing like the best player in the league. But the issue with him, which is almost unique, it's pretty unique. I mean, yes, there are inconsistent stars, but he's almost like the James Harden of big men.
Yeah.
In the sense that he can just be volcanically hot, and then the next game on a dime recede into the background, be completely forgotten in the flow of the game. And that's really hard to contend with when you are not receiving that, at least in this playoff run, from a team like the Nuggets.
No.
They are giving you the same quality of basketball basically every night.
Yeah. I mean, there's not too much more to say except that they are an incredibly deep and talented team. And I think they're definitely going to be the favorites going into the finals.
I agree.
But it's like, I don't even know how to describe how Jimmy Butler's been playing right now, so of course I can't rule out the Heat.
No, definitely not.
Winning this matchup
because this is
it's not as lopsided as people are making it out.
I agree, only because this is a really, really fantastic defensive team in terms of their scheme, in terms of their coaching, in terms of their intensity. This is a smart team. This is a hungry team. I don't think they're going to make it easy for anybody. This will easily. If this is the Nuggets Heat, if this is the matchup, the Nuggets will easily be the best team that they've played by a long shot, in my opinion.
Yeah.
So they will have their work cut out for them. But the thing is, I will be absolutely fascinated to see how Bam Adebayo and Nikola Jokic match up against one another.
Floyd the Barber wrote in, I want to see Bam guard Jokic. That'll be really fun.
Because
Bam's played great.
Because Bam, to his great credit, beyond just being extremely physically and athletically gifted, he's a really, really, I would say almost underratedly at this point, because a lot of other bigs have obviously gotten a lot more, shine. The three MVP candidates here are all big men, so it's kind of hard to get as much coverage or oxygen as Jokic, Giannis, Embiid. But Bam is a really, really talented player, really flexible and versatile player, and I'll be fascinated to see how him and his athleticism goes up against Jokic, both offensively and defensively. I'll be very interested to see that one-on-one matchup.
Yeah, for sure.
In the 7-game series. But also, just the last thing is put a button on this. Listen, I have no qualms. I said I wanted Embiid to win the MVP. I'm happy he won it, but that's why it's a regular season award.
Yep.
Everyone was talking about how Jokic didn't possess the playoff qualities. His team was healthy. The Sixers team was healthy. They weren't missing anybody, and the Sixers, for the 5th year in a row, did not make it out of the second round.
Yep.
And Jokic's team becomes healthy. Jamal Murray's back. Michael Porter Jr. is back. More better role players around him in his orbit. They're in the conference finals. They're 1 win away from the NBA finals.
Turns out it's not just a one-person team. That's
right.
Well, I mean, my point is just like you can't put it on Jokic for not getting to this point in the previous years because he didn't, like, the team was not there to support him. And yeah, so I mean, great button to put on it. A few more NBA little stories before we get to some NHL stuff. Then we're gonna take some calls. But I just wanted to highlight this because look, we're Knicks fans here. And I got choked up seeing the
Oh, I
video
know.
that Carmelo Anthony put out on Twitter, retiring after a 19-year Hall of Fame career. And you know, I there are a lot going to be people that disagree with me, but I think number 7 should be hanging in the rafters in Madison Square Garden.
Oh, I agree. Of course, I agree also just because it's a little bit of not to be super self-effacing about this, but it's a testament to the lack of, like enormous amounts of playoff success that Carmelo Anthony, at least for me as a fan, provided me with like some of the most like joy watching this team over the last like 15 years, as well as honestly like on-court success. So like I totally, in my opinion, I think he is absolutely like a fixture and a legend of like the second half of the 21st century Knicks.
He's the greatest Nick of the 21st century. I saw Alex Shepard tweet that out, a friend of the show. I mean, I'll never forget. Well, I mean, I was reminded of it the other day about that performance on Easter.
Oh, that game is against the Bulls, an
2012.
unforgettable game.
Derrick Rose's
the battle
MVP
between
season.
Derrick Rose and Melo.
Yeah, and then the year after that, right, was the year that they had that deeper playoff run, which was amazing.
And they lost to the Pacers before the conference finals, which itself was a great run.
I know that maybe people are, oh, he didn't win anything. He didn't win anything. But Carmelo Anthony wanted to be a Knick. He embraced everything about being a Knick. He was a class act as a Knick. He trudged through some horrible seasons and some dysfunction with this team, and he still wanted to be a Knick. He always wanted to be a part of this culture of the spotlight, the city where basketball is as central as anything, and retiring his number is what the Knicks as an organization should do, and it would be a middle finger, no pun intended, to ring culture, which is something I like, because I know it's not apples to apples, but Damian Lillard's number should be retired in Portland in the end, right? And he's not going to win a championship there.
Yeah, unless he gets traded somewhere else.
Well, no, but he's not going to win a championship in Portland.
He's not going to win a
sorry.
championship in Portland, I don't think.
They're going to maybe see if they can package that number 3 pick to get some players around him. But my point is just like, Carmelo Anthony did what everything a superstar could do with this Knicks team, which in the end, was too not healthy enough to support him, fell apart because we traded way too many assets when we could have just gotten him in free agency the next year or whatever, or 2 years later. I forget exactly how that worked out, but
he just made rooting for the team fun again. At least for me, like I became a Knicks fan when the New Jersey Nets moved to Brooklyn, and I needed to start over because I felt such a level of betrayal that they left. So the Knicks had started out with Amari Stoudemire before Melo came, and Melo came very shortly after. And he along with the Jeremy Lin games, like that game on Easter, the two playoff runs that they had, just made it fun to enjoy the team and be excited about the team again. And I am like super I as a fan am like grateful for him and would love to see him memorialized, because it's slim pickings that we got as Knicks fans, honestly. And this is not to diminish Melo. This is for me to say that like we deserve to and should memorialize and appreciate the great players that we have had and the moments that they've created and like the fabric that they've stitched into like the story of the organization, regardless of whether it led to like significant or protracted playoff success. And unless we forget, I mean, in terms of just a pure basketball player, one of the best college basketball players,
Syracuse legend,
an incredible run in Syracuse when they won the national championship, one of the best, most explosive scorers when he was in Denver, an Olympian, a great Knick, and then also ultimately a guy who I really respected for understanding that he and no one else could be like LeBron James and continue to possess the same athletic gifts that they did as they continued to get older, and just becoming a role player who knew that he had to just like basically stand in the corner and make shots, which he could do because he was such an amazing offensive player. I love Melo. I've always loved Melo. I have his jersey. I was
me
in the
too.
stands when he dropped 62 points at the Garden against the Bobcats.
You were in the stands?
I was there with my good friends, my friends John and Carter. We were there. I'll never forget that day. So I love Melo. I love celebrating Melo, and I hope that the Garden and James Dolan do as well.
Another NBA story before we get to the NHL I want to touch on. Let's pull up this JJ Redick clip. So, Ja Morant, he's being young and dumb. That's what I'll say. And he pulled out another gun on Instagram Live, which, dude, it's just, there's this huge issue. You had to have this interview where you had to apologize and you got suspended, and it was this whole controversy. How do you do it again? Because he's young and dumb right now, and that's not in and of itself a crime, but he's now suspended again. And I have mixed feelings about it, and they kind of were distilled by JJ Redick here on ESPN, where he kind of alluded to what he feels is a double standard. And JJ Redick is just a great voice right now in NBA media. And I don't think this is a perfect comparison that he makes here, but either way, the sentiment is something I appreciate.
Again, we can go into the backstory of the incident with the teenager. Ja's claiming self-defense, that the teenager threw the ball in his face. We can go into the incident at the mall when he yelled at his security guard. We can go into the incident with the Indiana Pacers traveling party. As far as we know, all of these things have been investigated and no law has been broken. I'm not condoning the behavior. I'm not saying there should be no punishment. There should be. There should be consequences. You are the face of the league. You are representing the NBA. You are a role model to young kids. All of that. I don't think half a season is the right answer. And the last point I want to make is, you bring this up, the guns on social media. We talk about consequences. Look, in our country right now, gun culture is pervasive. It's pervasive. We've got mass shooting after mass shooting, and nobody's doing a damn thing about it. So I get why we're so sensitive to this right now. But there's no consequence for Greg Abbott telling his constituents that they should go buy more guns, and then we have mass shooting after mass shooting in Texas. There's no consequence for an elected Tennessee official to send out a Christmas card holding AR-15s with his young family, and then there's a shooting in his very district. There's no consequences to that. So why are we trying to lay down the hammer on a 23-year-old who didn't break a law? Explain that to me.
I mean, look, he's not an elected. Greg Abbott's not the perfect example there, right? I don't think. But I don't want to get hung up on like the semantics of it, because the spirit of the rant is righteous. He's 23. He's 23, and you're allowed to open carry in this country in a bunch of states. I'm not sure where this latest, incident occurred where he flashed the gun. But that's not illegal in a lot of states in this country. And the NBA's policy is a good one about guns and trying to make sure that the kids watching these players have someone to look up to and they're not glorifying guns. But I just, one of the Giants players, I follow, Evan Neal, on social media, and he's like a country kid. He's from the South, and he was shooting a bunch of guns, putting it on his Instagram story, and it's just like, I don't agree with advertising this kind of stuff. I really don't. But I also don't agree with bringing down the hammer on Ja Morant if there hasn't been a legal violation. And it does feel a little bit like a double standard. I don't think he wanted to go there and talk about how it's racialized, but there is an element of that to me.
If anything, though, because I will say, I'm probably less. Listen, before I say this, I want to be clear.
Yeah.
You regardless of the fairness aspect, as an NBA player, as a public figure, as a representative of his organization, he will be and is inevitably, and especially as a star in the league, as one of the better players in the league, one of the more electric players in the league, he is held to a high. Has been and will be held to a higher standard, even if it might seem unfair. There might be a double standard to play, which I think there is to an extent. We should take a look at some of our own lawmakers who post Christmas cards of them. As JJ Redick just alluded to, Thomas Massey, Republican of Kentucky, entire family holding huge machine guns in their Christmas card. Lauren Boebert, Republican of Colorado, entire family, 4 kids, holding huge rifles in their Christmas card. They didn't get suspended from Congress. They didn't even get a slap on the wrist. No censure, no nothing. So I'm not as concerned about that because there is a double standard there. Certain conduct for literally the people who make our laws in this country does not apply to them. It applies to John Morant. But John Morant has a responsibility to his team to not look fucking stupid and make them look bad.
Totally agree.
And
it's a private company. It's different than ethics in Congress. So that's why it's not or in the governor's office.
And also the impact is so much more serious when you're a lawmaker who has the ability to like literally turn the wheels of power to advance pro-gun causes. So that's where I also think obviously there's a little bit of a disproportionate nature because Greg Abbott and John Morant, there's a huge power imbalance on who can do what. You know what I mean? Like,
yes, of course.
And the things that I'm more concerned about when it comes to Ja is who is around him.
Yeah.
And who is helping him make decisions? Who is in his ear? This guy should not be rolling up to his sister's volleyball game and menacing people and threatening people and trying to beat them up.
Yeah.
Allegedly. He should not be going to a mall because apparently a security guard upset his mother and trying to beat up the security guard. Allegedly. He shouldn't be
that's the part
he
yes.
shouldn't be having pickup basketball games and hitting a teenager in the face because something happened. Allegedly, I'm saying allegedly because all of this stuff is currently being adjudicated. It's too many instances where he is allegedly having made the wrong decision and put himself or put other people in danger. So he needs
to go into a counseling program with the NBA, but those are the instances I care way more about than the gun on social media. I'm sorry. For me,
it's a symptom and a
exactly.
instance of a pattern, a larger pattern of bad behavior by a guy who still is 23, 24 years old, has a child, is the face of this organization, one of the most electrifying players in the league. He's got a lot of pressure on him. And he's clearly repeatedly making poor decisions.
He needs some help.
So it's clearly not just him. Every one of these players has a circle around them. There's clearly not enough. He's clearly not being given the right advice. He's not getting the assistance that he needs, and he's not taking it either. So there's a lot of responsibility on him, but it's more than just him being a dumbass.
Yeah, and the Grizzlies have shown, honestly, to not be that well-run of an organization, and it's on them to provide counseling and structure for their franchise player. Like, a lot of teams in a bunch of different leagues are much better. The more well-run they are, they usually have a system of support that helps players transition to this level of fame at such a young age. And I don't know if the Grizzlies don't have that, but it wouldn't shock me if they don't. So,
I just think this is much more nuanced than just he's an idiot, he deserves to have the book thrown at him, or he's not doing anything wrong. It's not that he's not doing anything wrong. It's just that a lot of people get away with a lot more and are much older than that and basically reap no consequences for it. So I think everyone deserves grace. Everyone deserves multiple chances, but he's in a position where he's got to figure this out because he's going to stop getting them.
Yeah. All right, guys, again, we will take calls in probably 20-ish minutes. We'll take a break and turn on the phone lines. But let's get to some NHL talk before that. So we talked about Jimmy Butler at length at the start of the show.
Another Florida-based guy with ice in his veins.
It's not really an 8 seed because they do the stupid playoff format in the NHL, but they were the last team in. Like, they were one of the 2 wild cards, and they were lower seeded than the Florida Panthers, than the New York Islanders, and they were clearly a better team than the Islanders, and they got hot. They beat the Bruins in Game 7. They rolled through the Leafs, And it looks like they're about to roll through the Carolina Hurricanes. I mean, I don't know, but they took both of those games in overtime at home. And the guy that scored both of those overtime winners won after 4 overtime periods. That means they played more than 2 full games in the span of a night, and it was about to go to a 5th. Thankfully, it didn't happen. Matthew Tkachuk scored that overtime winner. Scored it again within 2 minutes to win it the other night as well.
I was out that night. I think it was Wednesday or Thursday, either one of the two.
Everything's blending together.
Yeah, of last week. And I was surprised, like, I hadn't seen a Bleacher Report notification of, like, what happened in the Panthers Hurricanes game. And I go to the app and I still see the active game. I'm like, it is 1:30 a.m. How is this game still going on?
It's borderline abusive. It's not even fun to watch at that point.
Because they're exhausted.
Yes.
They are like dragging their bodies around.
Overtime hockey is amazing if it lasts 1 period.
Right, for like 1 period.
Sudden death overtime playoff hockey. Or 2.
Agreed.
I'll take 2. But I mean, I even remember the Rangers going to triple overtime against the Capitals when I was in high school, and I'm like, what am I watching? Like, they can't even set up plays because they're so tired. I wonder if that will eventually be amended, but the NHL loves overtime because
it's amazing.
There are a lot of games that aren't close, like a 5-1 game, or what they want is overtime. That's the thing that they really care about. They don't even care as much, I think, about scoring. The NHL wants overtime. And for a guy like Matthew Tkachuk, who rises to that pressure. Why he's being compared to Jimmy Butler is because they're the same kind of guy right now. They're gritty, they're skilled, they're incredible offensively, and also have this defensive scrappiness that is so conducive to playoff success.
It's all. I think it's really like beyond the skill and beyond their ability to rise to the moment. It's just also their intelligence. Like, they're such smart players that make the right plays in situations where it's not just like, oh, they scored they do score, clearly, obviously they do score the big buckets. Jimmy's been doing it all series. Tkachuk has just scored 2 consecutive overtime winners.
Yeah,
and so they do that. But I'm even thinking, for example, when Carter Verhaeghe hit the overtime winner against the Bruins, I think, in the first round, that was literally as a result of
the setup by Tkachuk.
Yes, of Tkachuk sliding into behind the goal, wrenching the puck from the Bruin defender, whoever was down there, and slicing it past a guy's skate to Verhaeghe. Like that play, that Verhaeghe scores that goal because of Tkachuk's setup.
Yeah,
and that's like something like that's dirty work.
Oh, yeah,
that's stuff that guys do that aren't the ones expected to play to get 2 straight overtime winners. That's stuff that, like, you're not necessarily expecting like Sidney Crosby or Austin Matthews to be doing.
But Crosby does do that. I mean, Crosby was always really good at getting gritty setups and things like that. I mean,
maybe he's not the best example. I guess I'm just saying,
honestly,
like a
this
star
is the criticism
player,
of Artemi Panarin. This is the criticism of
or
Panarin.
someone like that, like an offensive-minded guy who needs
to be in space.
The dirty work.
There are some guys that, and I love Panarin with all my heart, but he needs work in that area. And there are some guys that are just stronger and better defensively. And usually, look, I mean, it's...
And Tkachuk is strong. That's a big thing.
That's the thing, right?
He's a big guy, and he uses it well, which is also great, which is
he's
like what you want.
He's the ideal, like, hockey blend of a old school hockey guy who wants grit and toughness and the new school fan who loves highlight reel goals and scoring.
It's a great match.
He's
for,
a
like,
clutch
hockey
player. I mean, it's just... whatever's happening whatever's in the water right now in South Florida is, I mean, is Sunrise near? Where is Sunrise?
Sunrise is I think Sunrise, I believe, if I'm not...
Come on, Florida. Sunrise, just be the Miami Panthers.
I think Sunrise is outside of Orlando. It's not. That's why I think it's slightly different. I believe they're closer to Orlando than Miami.
Okay, yeah, they are. Well, they're in Broward County, so that is.
Or is it Miami? I might.
No,
yeah,
they're close to Fort Lauderdale. That's what it is.
Okay,
so it's Broward County. So yeah, there's something in the water in Broward County or in Miami-Dade County, right? And it's not just the chemicals that DeSantis is putting into the pavement that
Right,
are known to
exactly.
cause cancer. And it's not just
And it's not the CRT.
racism or the anti-trans stuff. It's something clutch that they have down there. So, like, I'm rooting for the Panthers to win the cup. Kind of, I mean, this is Gary Bettman's dream to have an all-Southern market NHL Final Four, because this is where he'd been wanting to expand forever. I think the viewership must be down significantly, but I guess they don't really care that much.
Because I mean, Avs out, for reigning Stanley Cup champs out.
No original six teams.
Bruins out, best team in the regular season, original six. Leafs out, longest
Rangers
playoff
out.
drought. Rangers
Yeah.
out, Devils out. Like it's not necessary. But I think while maybe they're lacking in terms of huge media markets, the hockey has been really great.
It has been.
And
a bunch of overtime games
it's
as
been
well.
awesome. It's been awesome to watch. Honestly, I see a lot. It's obviously different pedigrees, but I'm really been impressed with both in both conferences. The run by the Panthers with how deep and gritty and tough these teams are and how unwilling they are to give up. And honestly, I'm really impressed with the Knights. The Knights have just been playing basically mistake-free, solid team hockey, and
their scoring's coming from everywhere.
It's coming from everywhere, exactly.
It's not just Eichel and Stone.
Another guy who has been really
Carlson.
great. Another guy who's been really, really great consistently in multiple postseasons is Jonathan Marchessault.
Yeah.
And he's been coming on. He had a hat trick, I believe, in game 1 against the Stars. He's been playing really well. Yeah, and to your point about guys scoring from all over, I mean, Eichel's setting up guys for great goals. Chandler Stevenson had the overtime winner in game 3. Like, they are playing really, really great hockey, these two teams. And I think a Knights-Panthers Stanley Cup, while obviously fascinating to be like Vegas versus Miami in terms of like media markets, fans, like all of that. I think it would be a great matchup in terms of styles and in terms of teams.
Agree with you. I agree. And look, I'm happy with whoever comes out of the West, but I do have a soft spot in my heart for Eichel because of how horribly he was treated by the Buffalo Sabres when they refused to let him get the surgery that he wanted. He ended up getting it, and wow, look at that.
And look
he's
how
not
he's playing.
Paralyzed for life, as I was told on Twitter. That looks like he knew what was best for his body, and we shouldn't be in favor of teams telling guys what surgeries they can and cannot get. So
and now he's playing, and now he's like
good for Eichel. Seriously.
And now not only is he like playing like meaningful playoff hockey, which I'm like so happy that he is, he's also one of the most like integral cogs in the Knights machine.
Yeah.
He's
a great player.
He's so fast, he's so smart. He makes amazing reads when he passes. He is such good stick work. Like it's a joy to watch him playing meaningful reps in the conference finals.
Yeah.
As opposed to toiling in Buffalo.
Yeah. And look, I mean, Ottinger has played as well as he can, but I do think the Knights seem like the better team. And it does make me sad if they do. Look, the Knights have won both in Vegas, and they're about to go to Dallas.
Right, so we'll see. Of course, it could totally
turn around. Yeah.
And they're still great. I mean, they're a great team. Like,
but I just feel for the vets like Jamie Benn, who's been there for a million years. Tyler Seguin,
Joe Pavelski.
Yeah, those guys are like, they've stuck with it there, and so
Pavelski obviously, along with former NHL legend Joe Thornton, were on the classic San Jose Sharks teams that were constantly so close to either getting to the Stanley Cup or winning the Stanley Cup, and just never getting.
They went
over
to the
line.
finals one year, didn't they? Those two guys.
Poor Joe Thornton never got it, even though folk hero, amazing player, just never got over the line for the ring.
Yeah, wow. Joe Pavelski's 38 years old. I'm about to look up how long do you think Jamie Benn has been on the Stars?
I think he's been there since 2010 or 2009.
I mean, he got drafted there, and he was drafted in 2007.
2007,
but he made the roster in the 2009-2010.
Okay, so he literally 14, 15
career.
years in Dallas. Yeah.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
And Seguin has been there a while too after coming over from the Bruins. So.
And we, unfortunately for me, we got a bid farewell to the Oilers. Another year, another
step to McDavid becoming a Ranger.
Yeah, your lips to God's ears. I feel for him and Leon Draisaitl, honestly, because
It's actually messed up.
There's nothing more electric, and at least for me this year, in terms of just like my enjoyment of watching sports, than watching those two guys on a power play. Just like how mesmerizing their speed and their talent is when they're just getting a mismatch like through 4-on-3 or 3-on-2 and just mowing down whoever's in front of them. And it's just so sad that like this is one of those teams where it's like they're almost like the Mavericks to me in a sense, in terms of a cross sport comparison, in that sure, you can allow a guy like Luka Doncic to score 45 points, or you can allow McDavid and Draisaitl to basically get two goals, 2 assists, whatever the case may be. If you can just neutralize every other person on the ice, they're going to lose the game.
Yeah.
Because there's just if Evan Bouchard is not scoring, if Stuart Skinner is playing bad in net, and if Cam Talbot?
Why didn't they start Jack Campbell?
Right, Jack. And also,
why did they not start Jack Campbell?
Right, and if they're not even going to make the switch, if Stuart Skinner is playing poorly, and then also if Bouchard's not scoring, if Nugent Hopkins isn't scoring, if Evander Kane isn't scoring, you're going to lose the game. It's because they're playing 2-on-5. They're literally playing 2-on-5.
It's actually just like torture for Oilers fans. I mean, we're getting. You spoke about Austin Matthews. He has like a July 1st deadline to extend. He has one more year on his contract after this.
Oh, and the Leafs too, of course. Speaking of the other, obviously massive disappointment.
All right, we got more to talk about. I just keep forgetting that I had 2 weeks off. We got 2 major stories. We got the Coyotes in the NHL, and we got the
So
Leafs.
we'll do Leafs first, and then
Let's do Leafs first.
Leafs. Dropped by the Panthers,
and then they got rid of Kyle Dubas,
and then fired their GM. Yeah,
but like not just fired him. I mean, I forgot to get sound for this, but you guys can look this up, because the president of the Maple Leafs, who Shanahan, I'm forgetting his first name, but
Brendan Shanahan.
Yeah, I think.
Yeah. Oh yeah, bro. Oh, I didn't even realize he had this job. He was formerly the head of player safety, Brendan Shanahan.
Oh right. Okay. Yeah. Well, he's the team president, and Dubas was the GM, a young kind of up and coming GM, and. Honestly, the team that Dubas constructed this year specifically, and they made that trade for Ryan O'Reilly, which I thought was a great trade.
Yeah, and he played well in the playoffs. He had a bunch of good moments.
I have no
in the playoffs.
issues with how the team was constructed. Honestly, I mean they made the right decision, by the way, letting Jack Campbell go. I'm old enough to remember when people were saying in Igor Shesterkin's Vezina year, well, maybe it should go to Jack Campbell. I was like, give me a break.
Don't think so.
Yeah, exactly. Don't think so. Sorry. Now he's not even playing for the. We didn't even play that last series for the Oilers, which also didn't make sense.
Which was wild. But seeing how Stuart Skinner was playing.
Either way, is silly choice by them, but still. The goaltending thing, maybe you can make an argument that they haven't been able to find one. But you're seeing a lot of these teams going deep in the NHL playoffs. This isn't kind of the old NHL where you need a top 5 goaltender. Like, defensive structure is getting a little bit better, but it was just shocking that they fired Kyle Dubas, because so he did this. Shanahan did this press conference where he explained in detail, Bradley, on like a day-by-day, hour-by-hour basis how the contract negotiations went, and said it completely from his side, but essentially made it seem like Dubas was trying to squeeze them for more term or for more money.
Interesting. And
that they just had to say, like, well, it doesn't. The point that really pissed me off was when he was like, it just made it clear that Dubas or Kyle did not want to be the general manager of the Leafs anymore. And it's like, did that make it clear at all, or were you guys
based on his reactions in the box? I really don't think that was the case.
So.
Dubas seems like a pretty competitive guy, and he was absolutely sick and furious when they lost some of those games. I don't think he didn't want to be there. At least from my view. Like,
yeah, it just is. It seems like another situation where the Leafs are an incredibly reactive organization.
Yes.
They are consistently facing and warped. Their minds are warped by the pressure from the Toronto press.
Absolutely.
And it's
which
like,
leads to turnover, which does not.
we see it in New York with the Knicks.
Totally, of course. Which
yeah.
the level of turnover, even despite potentially middling or disappointing results, does not sometimes lead to like the revolutionary next step. It sometimes actually actively sets teams back. We've seen it with the Knicks, who have had like literally 20 coaches in the last 20 years.
Yeah,
like it hasn't helped that they've had no consistency.
There's a reason that the last time they won the championship was around the same time that the Knicks did. By the way, these are
in the early 70s.
These are the two if you think of hockey, you think of Toronto. If you think of basketball, you think of New York. I mean, like that's the sport that most people play in this city.
And despite record, like two of the most profitable organizations in all of sports, and despite their lack of playoff success.
And this is just, I thought that was total horse crap. The way that he threw Dubas under the bus and didn't let Dubas tell his side of the story, and he, to my knowledge, hasn't said anything publicly about it. But he's gonna get hired by somebody. He's already interviewing with the Penguins. But man, like this would actually make me really pissed off as a Leafs fan, because there was no need to blow this up.
No,
there was no need to blow this up.
I agree. I just think even in terms of the years where they've been really good, and what I mean by that is like the last like 5 or 6 years where they've been perennially in the playoffs and had disappointing results in the first round. You know, I think that this is probably the best team they've assembled.
Yeah,
having Tavares, Matthews, Marner, Nylander, Samsonov in goal.
O'Reilly is a rental.
O'Reilly is a rental. Like I actually both O'Reilly, and then also is it Morgan Riley is the other. I think he's the other Leafs player.
Yes.
They have a solid, like good deep team. I think this is something where this is the first. I guess to me it's almost equivalent to like. It's not 1-to-1, obviously, but I'm just saying it's almost equivalent to like the Kings getting to the playoffs first time in 17 years. And then losing in 7 to the Warriors, and then like firing Mike Brown or something.
Yeah.
Where it's like, oh, we didn't get that. We literally slay the proverbial dragon of something for our team's history, but now because we didn't get a step farther, we need to change something. To me, it's like, you guys didn't get there before.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, what is this if not a building block? What is this if not a building block to something else when you literally didn't even have that building block before? They finally
won, but the building block in that instance is getting to the playoffs. The building block in this instance is winning a playoff series.
Right.
And they did it.
And they won one.
The difference in those instances, though, is that the Kings are up and coming and young, and there's a fear that the Leafs
This is like an more accelerated time. Like Tavares is not getting any younger.
No, and he didn't have a great, playoffs. And except for, I mean, he had that overtime winner, but like perhaps there's concern in some way about Austin Matthews resigning, but I think it actually makes it less likely he'll resign because he doesn't know if there's going to be a rebuild or something like that, or they're going to be
who are they going to hire? What's the outlook for that guy, the person that they hire? What is their long-term or short-term plan for the organization now that Dubas is not there anymore?
Yeah, and
is Sheldon
apparently
Keefe still
Dubas
coach? Like, I mean, which I don't think he shouldn't be. I'm just saying, like, sometimes GMs don't love inheriting a coach, and vice versa. Coaches don't love, having their GM leave and them staying with another guy, another person to just take over the front office. So I just think it leads to more instability than is necessary for what they accomplished.
Yeah, I agree. And apparently Dubas was loved by the players there. This makes it less likely, I think, that Austin Matthews resigns, and that could set up a huge,
It'd be an enormous domino.
If I were him,
if he left.
I would not. If I were him, I would 100% not. Because then you go into your final contract year. He's gonna get the bag no matter what.
He's gonna get a ton of money wherever he goes.
See what your options are. See what your options are. And I know he's from Scottsdale, right? We'll get to the Coyotes in a second. They might not be.
He's like, you know what? I was missing my college days. I want to go play. I want to go play in a college rink again.
But he might want to play in America. He might.
Yeah, no,
he
totally.
might. He's an American guy.
It's absolutely possible, and it would be freaking seismic if he was like, I'm not going to take my option.
I don't think
the sweepstakes would be crazy.
He should do it. He should, and it doesn't mean he doesn't end up there, but he should.
But in terms of maybe also just establishing that, hey, like you're gonna need to court me a little bit for me to come. It's not a guarantee that I come back.
Exactly. It's always fun when players hit the market, so I'm in favor.
Oh, totally. Because it also doesn't happen all the time in hockey, so it's like fun when they do.
Yeah.
Like it'll be like I'm hoping not just like selfishly in terms of like, oh, I hope the Devils gonna like not even really like that. I just hope I do hope at some point McDavid does decide to leave Edmonton.
Me too.
Like I just hope that we see that.
I feel badly for Edmonton fans, but guys, look, you've had the two greatest players in the history of the game on your team,
and somehow that has not led to like 20 Stanley Cups.
Yeah, I mean,
like, like how do you have Wayne Gretzky and Connor McDavid at some point in your history and not have like the most Stanley Cups of any organization?
I mean, they won 4 in
yes, that of course they were
when
that's
he was
when they
with
were
the Oilers.
That was the storied
yes, but
Gretzky
since
Oilers
then, yeah, exactly. So, all right. Last NHL story, and then we're going to take a break and we'll turn on the phone lines, and then we have one more story for you. But the Arizona Coyotes need to get the hell out of Arizona. I am sick of this garbage.
Well, because also nobody wants them there.
They just lost. So there was this.
Everyone's like, get out.
There was this, I guess it was a referendum. Is that how you would characterize it?
Yes, because usually I think when teams propose this type of tax increase for a stadium, it's like a ballot measure.
Yes, it was. Oh, that's a better one. It's a ballot measure.
Yeah.
And they did this for the original proposal for the Islanders, which got shot down, I believe. If you can double check that for me, that would be lovely.
Double check what thing?
The Islanders, I think they originally had a proposal that got shot down, if I'm not mistaken. But either way, in the Arizona Coyotes, there was a proposal for a new arena in Tempe because they've been playing in the 5,000 person college arena, and it was going to be $2 billion or something, and the voters in the area just rejected it very overwhelmingly so. And now they're essentially without a plan to move forward, and yet there is this consistent push by Bettman to keep the team in the desert, to keep the team in Arizona, when there are a ton of markets, honestly, that would be much more amenable to it. I saw Patrick Mahomes saying they should bring him to Kansas City. Honestly, why not? Like, why not? Because right now Kansas City has a vibrant, obviously, sports fandom, and with Mahomes' backing, or bring it to Quebec City and revive the Nordiques.
I was just going to say
he'll never do that. He doesn't want more Canadian teams.
But that's what I was just going to say is like, if anything, who would be hungrier or more excited to have their franchise back than people in Quebec City who had the Nordiques and love the Nordiques, or even bring them back to Hartford.
He wants to keep
revive
the team
the Whalers.
In the West. No, but they need to be in the West.
But that's what it is. That's what it is. Is like to me, it seems like you would literally be implementing you would have a built-in fan base for these teams to relocate there. But as you said, you're right. It's all about market expansion. It's not about like reviving any sort of classic throwback team or anything. They want to be in Arizona, where clearly nobody wants them.
No one wants them. And then there was, and then now, I mean, we saw how they handled and took less than they probably could have gotten for their trade of the defenseman to Ottawa. God, this is why I need Jacob Chychrun. They took less than they could have because they didn't want to have to retain salary. They've been consistently this organization that wants to pay as little as they possibly can and not get penalized by the NHL because the owners are cheap. They're playing in a freaking college arena. This is getting out of hand.
It really is.
The guys need to sell the team. And then I saw in Slapshots or whatever, that newsletter, that Coyotes players have been filing multiple complaints with the union about bad lodging, travel, treatment, and that it's in violation of the NHL Players Association CBA with the league. So they're treating their players like crap. They can't find an arena. They're playing in a college arena. The city doesn't want them. Let's go. Find a city that actually wants a team. And there are plenty of cities. Look at how Seattle has embraced the Kraken. They were hungry for a city.
And Vegas. Vegas.
Even Vegas. I mean, I know if there's some tourism of people going to the games, but that's what they want, and I'm fine with that.
But I think much more than the Raiders.
Oh, yeah.
that Vegas has really embraced the Knights. I mean, of course, like as you said, people will probably, I don't know.
Well, they were
go to a
instantly good.
football
I mean,
game,
they
go to a
went
hockey- right. They went to the Cup their first season. I mean,
with Gallant.
that you're right, exactly. That helps. I'd say, of course, in terms of getting people in seats, but I think, as you said, there are markets and there are cities that would welcome, and if not even, well, let's say welcome is the best outcome in terms of like a city embracing an NHL team. Welcome, hey, like we'll see what happens here.
Right.
Better than actively rejecting the team at the ballot box.
Overwhelmingly.
I'd say so.
And this is just Gary Bettman being fixated on capturing this market.
Exactly.
It's
absolutely.
It's artificially inflated, created by the league, forced upon the team, and it's incredibly unfair to the players that get drafted there. Logan Cooley, who they took 3rd overall, said, I'm returning to college for another year, for his 2nd season.
He's like, you know
he
what?
He could have gotten paid right now, come to the NHL on an entry-level contract, but he's like, nope, I'm not dealing with this crap. I mean, it's really unfair to the 1/32nd or whatever the fraction is of the players, the young kids that get drafted into this league and have no choice but to go to the Arizona Coyotes. They're being treated horribly as players. The team is not wanted. Let's wrap this crap up.
Agreed.
Please.
Absolutely.
Enough.
Absolutely.
All right, guys, we are going to take a break. I'm going to call into the phone lines. If you want to call in, the number is 646-257-3920. Please like the stream. Get us into the algorithm, all that good stuff. Again, the number is 646-257-3920. I'm turning off the voicemail. Talk to you in a bit. We are back.
We're back.
We're back, everybody. Hello.
ourselves.
All right, we're going to take some calls, read some IMs. Calling from a 210 area code. 210. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Hey
210.
there, is this me? This is El Conipcion from San Antonio. How you doing?
El Conipcion from San Antonio. Oh, you got to take us off speaker, buddy.
I wasn't. I'm sorry. I had keys jingling into the phone. I am going to get away from some treadmills, and then I will be ready to. Well, at least my voice will sound better. But
No problem. So, you are a regular IMer, fan of the show. Appreciate your support, El Conipcion. What made you feel the need to call in today? What's on your mind?
I was giving you the opportunity to talk to a lifelong Spurs fan about our recent draft lottery coup, once again, of the greatest big man of the generation inbound, for the third time in only 3 losing seasons of our
They can't keep
of our
getting away
history.
with this.
I mean, Pop is going to coach for another
He's gonna
400 years.
He's gonna be there until he's like the President Nixon in Futurama. He's just gonna be a head in a jar.
It's the end of the world. I don't really know where I don't really know where to start with it. Do you guys want to maybe key me off, or where should I start? Maybe.
Well, I mean, look, how do you feel about getting Wemby? From my perspective, I was pissed about the draft lottery because the stupid Mavericks were rewarded.
that was
for
tough.
Tanking, and no team jumped up, so the Knicks could get pick 11. But I mean, in terms of a place where Wemby could go, I mean, it's probably pretty ideal for him.
I think it's absolutely the best situation between basically the front runners for the first overall pick being between
Charlotte,
San Antonio, Charlotte, Houston, and Portland. Right. I think infrastructurally, culturally, in terms of coaching acumen, there's really no better place for a enormous big man from overseas to flourish, because that's overseas players flourish with San Antonio, big men flourish with San Antonio. This is just combining them. Wemby even said in it when he was interviewed after the lottery that he specifically was excited because Tony Parker is such a fixture for French players growing up.
Yes.
That he was just very excited to have been selected by a team that is employed one of their French basketball standard bearers.
Not the best guy.
Yeah,
but,
right. On the court, between the lines.
But but Pop has a great history in developing European players, which is also why I think this is exciting for him.
Absolutely. I will, to answer your question first, I do have some lamentations about what some people have to say about the pick. But to answer your questions first, I was not shocked and it's illogical because it's a 14% chance of getting that pick. They flattened out the odds a few years ago.
Yeah.
But I didn't feel shocked. I would have felt shocked if he had gone to any other team because we are the San Antonio Spurs. I am a local and lifelong fan. We are the team that has the best chance to do right by him in terms of his physical growth. This is a very specific frame that hasn't been seen a lot before, especially with a guy who can handle the ball. Like, this is going to take some time and some growth, or you see things like a Chet Holmgren happen sadly, like the injury that he had. And why I'm really glad he's here is because in this last year, I believe 2 years ago, the French team he was on, he had some nagging injuries, and they were pretty upset when Wembanyama's camp about not being shepherded through his growth that he has to do properly. And he got to the team he was on this past year. That was one place that they valued a lot, and it was they valued a lot that they were going to be able to develop him physically, but also he went there because he wanted to be coached up and not because they were just going to give him the ball and go crazy with it and make all sorts of crazy, losing plays that build a bad culture. Like, in that same vein, he's going to come to us and have that. Why I'm happiest about him going here is that we have the best, whole open stage to offer him out of all of these teams that, you have Charlotte building with LaMelo, who I'm not quite sold on.
And of course, the Pistons, right, with Cunningham as well.
The Pistons have a glut of big men and don't know how to build a team.
Yeah, Jalen Duren, I guess he's been a disappointment, right? I haven't followed the Pistons enough, but
he's probably
he's been doing okay. Maybe I'm thinking of another big guy.
Well, so the interesting thing with them is that they were hoping to see another year of how of Cade Cunningham, given how well he played the year before he was out for the season. They traded Sadiq Bey to the Hawks. Bojan Bogdanovic was basically the best. Oh yeah, they picked up James Wiseman. So as you say, Elkin Nibs, you're absolutely right that
they have a ton of big men
between Duren and between Duran and James Wiseman, and also, if I'm not mistaken, Marvin Bagley is also still on the Pistons.
Oh yeah.
So they really have a bunch
Yeah,
of
yeah.
first round draft cast-offs already, so they don't really need any more big men. So I agree. Wemby going to that crowded of a room is probably not for the best, and also I just think there's
also
more turmoil with that team already going in.
And then just a rapid firework in the other two is like Portland. They're still kind of riding through timelines. I wouldn't be happiest about them and need to playoff game. And then in Houston, you've got all these guards who are still figuring out how to play professional basketball. Not the greatest place for him to get the ball. And that's why I'm happiest for him to go to San Antonio. This is going to be the best thing long term for the league and long term for the game of basketball. And I'm really upset about the way certain people have handled this on social media, saying Tony Parker posts a picture of Victor as a little kid. You can't tell what age he is because he's I don't know, he's probably 6 foot something already in that picture. But, people are saying, oh, it's rigged because he was wearing a Tony Parker jersey and they love him over here. And it's like, well, I mean, if you care about European basketball, Europe really loves the Spurs, and Tony Parker for that generation of European basketball is basically our Michael Jordan. This is not the most insane thing at all. And just where I go from there is I've even heard Big Waz say over on the Ringer airwaves, which I know a friend of your show, and I love his stuff, but I was even kind of disappointed in him saying, and others saying, that this isn't the best place for the good of the league for exposure for him to go. And I'm actually just quite disappointed with that take because showing that amount of influence, like I talk about, that Tony Parker has had on the game of basketball over in Europe, this thing is good for the game of basketball, which they're trying to grow worldwide. The NBA spending a lot of time building up prospects in Africa and trying to make the game trying to make prospects at a more professional ready level over there, on one of the most populous places in the world. And, also building the fan base over there. This is an absolutely great thing for the game of basketball. And I just think it's wrong to come down on oh, this isn't the flashiest place to go because, when we get around to the playoffs, you guys are going to be watching us like you always did back then when we were losing 50 games every year.
Yeah.
Now, winning 50 games.
I love small market teams like that. And the Spurs are, I don't agree with that take fully by Waz either, just because the Spurs have such a built-in kind of fan base given their championship pedigree. But all right, El Conipcion, congratulations. Congratulations.
Yeah, thanks.
Enjoy. Live it up.
I'll be around. I'll be ready for. Oh, by the way, can I plug something real quick?
Yeah, go ahead.
We have fired up a podcast. Me and my childhood best friend, we're both lifelong Spurs fans. It is called Beautiful Tame. That is spelled beautiful, and then Tame, Tame. I'm trying to do some sort of play on the Beautiful Game moniker that they gave to the 2014 Spurs. They won with all the crazy passing and stuff. But anyway, so what we're going to be doing over there is just very conversational, going back and forth. We're going to be doing it from our vantage point in San Antonio. We're going to be talking about the Spurs' future a lot, and then we're going to be, touching on, the rest of the league and what's going on just from the outside looking in. And it's going to be a good time. So, we just rolled this out. First episode is out. We're going to be building this up, doing it regularly, but not a set schedule. So I just want to say thank you very much for giving me the time to say that. Beautiful Tame.
The beautiful Tame. El Conipcion's San Antonio Spurs podcast.
Yeah, we will look out for that.
Only on Spotify. It's only on Spotify for now. But thanks a lot. You guys have a great day, and thanks for giving me some of your airwaves. Y'all have a good one.
All good. Have a good one, dude. Bye.
Thanks. Bye.
All right. I think I hung up there. Kowalski from Nebraska, I can't believe your guys' lack of faith in the Celtics. This is the Celtics year and will not be stolen by anyone. Tons of Celtics fans are chanting, "Stop the steal." I'm with them on this. Hashtag stop the steal. Yay, Musk B. Jones and said, brand new ESVN listener here. Welcome. Do you all talk about combat sports at all? There was a huge boxing match this weekend where the match was phenomenal, but the judging at the end was atrocious and a bit suspect. Anyway, love what you're doing here. Thank you. We do not, but
yeah, I think they're referring to the Devin Haney Vasily Lomachenko match.
I watched a little of that because I was on ESPN, right? And I thought that I think I was like trying to find either the hockey or the basketball over the weekend.
I
But
think people were just surprised because it seemed that Lomachenko was more evenly matched and ultimately lost to Haney, who was the reigning champion. But I think people just really weirdly do just scorecards very, very differently and like almost like sporadically amongst judges in boxing matches. So
yeah.
don't think there's like a rigged thing or anything to that.
Casey answer, I would love to see the Coyotes in Kansas City. What do you think are the chances of overcoming the NHL to see that happen? I mean, honestly, that seems like the perfect place for it. Like,
Yeah,
Kansas City
agreed.
gets cold. There can be hockey there. That could create some like really cool rivalry with the St. Louis Blues, right? Like a little
Yeah.
bit. I mean, they might feel that that's part of the St. Louis market. I'm not sure, but I think Kansas City. I mean, the what Bettman seems to want, if it's not Arizona, is Houston, and that would also be terrible. But
The Kansas City spare ribs. Kansas City
yeah,
barbecue.
but they could keep the Coyotes. I mean, honestly, those Coyotes jerseys are sick.
Yeah, no, I do like them for sure.
Floyd, I already read that one. Dave from Jamaica, the money ballification of sports. Yes, for sure. Wu-Tang Forever. Buckets is operating on a different level with Spo. Hunt's mismatches, charging the paint and drawing guys in, them kicking out for a clean three, stealing and dealing and scoring, really playing beautiful basketball. El Conipcion, Jalen was one of those draft picks, going back to the Pierce KG trade to the Nets. Yes, I said Durant, which was not correct. I meant Garnett. Antifa Lockhart, state of Arizona to Coyotes, drop dead. Yes. All right, let's take another call. Now, calling from a 214 area code. 214, who's this? Where are you calling from?
Hey, is this me?
This is you. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Hey, I'm Alex in Dallas.
Alex in Dallas. That rhymes-ish.
Yeah.
What's on your mind?
A little bit. So, first of all, I'm glad that the Mavs kept the pick. They're going to trade it anyway and be terrible
it seems
next
like
year.
that.
So,
Yeah, well, yeah, I'm look, it was a disgusting move by Mark Cuban, but I understand obviously the cold-hearted like reality of it. And it was probably the right move for them, I guess.
I think the disgusting part is more saying the quiet part out loud.
Yeah.
The Mavericks weren't going to make the playoffs, no matter how hard Luka and Kyrie tried. But then just outright saying that, oh yeah, no, we're packing it up for the year.
Not even on Slovenia Day he
not a
was
good
going to
look.
play the whole game. It was
I
Slovenia
know.
Day at the ballpark.
Yeah, it's not fun. But I wanted to call and talk a little bit about Formula One.
Sure.
It's an interesting sport that I've gotten really into over the last couple of years. It's interesting in the fact that there's a lot of dirty money in the sport. There's, oil money all over, sponsorships. The Saudi empire is in on it. They play in a lot of, or race in a lot of Middle Eastern countries. But there's also the Vegas race this year in November, which will be really interesting. But I just wanted to talk a little bit about that. Sometimes in sports, in any sport, we have to look away or ignore a little bit of the bad people that are funding these things. And it's interesting how, we can talk about it, but we still enjoy the sports in and of themselves. And I think Formula One's probably one of the worst culprits of it.
Yeah.
And then you have like everybody else.
Well, it's really about, existing in capitalism and what you can stomach and what you can't. And I think for the most part, it's just about enjoying what you enjoy and not placing too much guilt on yourself for not being able to conform to impossible societal expectations when you're just trying to enjoy something. So, we all draw our own lines. I have trouble with college sports, particularly college football, because the players don't get paid. But at the same time, I watch football, which is abusive in its own right. So I haven't gotten into Formula One, but I've heard a lot of people really like it, and not sure if that's kind of related to what you wanted to discuss, but it, don't judge yourself too harshly for liking anything.
Yeah, it's hard to ethically
the
consume.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. The last point I'll make with Formula One, it's on ESPN every single or almost every single weekend. They've got up to like 26 races this year.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, the hours are a little bit wild, but ESPN just takes the Sky feed from the UK, and it's all commercial free, like 2.5 hours of
Whoa.
racing. Yeah,
Fun.
really fun. Except for the fact that Red Bull is the best team far and away, and they're going to win every single race this year. And their star driver is my least favorite. But
Is that Verstappen?
Yes, it is Max Verstappen.
Yeah.
Why is he your least favorite?
He, you know what? I'm also a Mavericks fan, but I like to say that he is very much like Luka Doncic in the fact that he is extremely whiny when he doesn't get his way, and he's extremely polarizing in that respect.
Gotcha. All right.
Like a couple weeks ago, he got into a wreck in practice and called the guy that he got into an accident with a little bitch to the media.
Who's your favorite?
That's nice.
Who's your favorite Formula One?
It's Lewis Hamilton. You know,
Yeah.
he's the only.
He
he's
seems
the only
to be
racer
everybody's.
of color. And, yeah, he's the only person of color in Formula One as a race car driver, and he's the winningest racer of all time.
That's pretty badass.
He's really cool.
All right. Well,
Yeah. All right,
appreciate
thanks,
the
guys.
call, Alex. Have a good one.
Yeah, thanks, man.
You too. Bye.
Bye. All right, we're gonna take one more call, then we're gonna read some IMs, and I have one more story for you guys, and then we will get out of here. Calling from a 650 area code, you're potentially the final caller of the day.
Is this me?
This is you.
Hello, this is Ryan from California.
Ryan from California, you're the final caller of the day.
Incredible. My goodness. I'm a avid MR watcher, listener, and I've been following you guys for so long. I can't believe I'm here. So a little nervous, but
No,
so happy.
I mean, look,
I'm so
this is
thankful for what you guys
even
do.
lower stakes than the majority
Absolutely.
report. This is like Bradley
Oh,
and
yeah.
Emma hangout time.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, yes, yeah. I don't have to impress
It's the
Sam.
water cooler.
Yeah.
Exactly, right. I'm calling to talk about, so I'm a Warriors fan, Bay Area native, and man, my king, Stephen Curry, has been slain by the real king, King James. But I wanted to talk a little bit about that series. I'm noticing throughout this postseason a pattern. I don't like to complain about referees. You know, I endured 2016 and the slander that I got when LeBron came into Oracle and beat my team. But they shot double the free throws we did last series. I checked on Basketball Reference. They shot 160 free throws, and we shot 80. So I don't know if this has to do with flopping, but I guess the crux of my question is I have noticed a serious uptick in flopping, or at least the severity of it. And I don't know, man, it's making games damn near unwatchable.
Yeah, well,
my
you
team does it
probably
too.
have a bit of the Draymond effect, right? And the fact that, like, is your set? I mean, I was a little bit on the. I know I'm harkening back to the first series against the Kings, but like,
Right.
Sabonis is playing that shit up because he knows that Draymond's
Absolutely.
history is one that like will make but like I guess all players kind of play that, but with Draymond it feels
It's a league-wide thing.
It feels very, very specific.
It's also like, and it's
Yeah.
not, and it certainly does affect, I would say, the aesthetics of the game a little bit, which I almost think is why that there was that rule change to basically like sort of outlaw like Trae Young, James Harden fouls behind the arc, in the sense that
Sticking your leg out.
yes, exactly, in the sense that like basically the league had to make that change because honestly, for some of those guys like that, or certain players, like either sort of flopping or kind of drawing contact like that, or phantom contact. Chris Paul being one of the best at doing so is just sort of like, yes, it's annoying and it's almost kind of like shenanigans to a degree, but I think how they would argue it is like, they're just basically trying to become masters of the rule book almost, which is like annoying as a fan because you're like, it's not enjoyable basketball, but they're like, oh, if I can get to the free throw line, I'll do whatever I can to get there because I'm a good free throw shooter. But yes, I agree. It does absolutely sometimes take away from the game when certain players or certain teams are almost revolving around that style of play.
Yeah, I think the main thing that annoys me is just the asymmetry of it. And what I mean by that is I've watched Steph for the better part of a decade shoot threes, get clocked in the middle of the air, and have guys land in his landing space, no foul. There's a large percentage of shots that he takes that I feel like should be 4-point plays. And then there are guys that like barely get touched and fall to the ground every single play, and they get rewarded. So I just don't understand how.
I hear you, Ryan. I mean, you're losing me a little here, but I look.
All right.
You know what you can do? You can use those 4 rings to pick up a tissue and then wipe your eyes with it.
I know. I honestly, this is me projecting a little bit because I'm still traumatized. Man, just. I understand.
I'm really messing with you.
Anyway.
But you were, but
I know.
But I'm totally with you on, like, I think this year in particular with the Draymond effect and like the calls going against Golden State, like that's a fair critique. So, appreciate the call, Ryan, and thanks for listening.
Oh yeah, thanks guys. I just wanted to hear your opinion. Love everything you guys do. Left is best.
Left is best. You guys. Appreciate you. Thanks.
Thank you.
All right, so we have some breaking news. I just sent that to you. We covered this story, which is now concluded, unfortunately. A few weeks ago, John Mara spoke out against the Thursday Night Football flexing rule, called it abusive, very strong language. And it was tabled at the league meetings last month, and now it is approved. This is a really disgusting decision by the NFL that's clearly meant to pander to Jeff Bezos, who has now and Amazon, the corporation in general. Amazon Prime has the rights to Thursday Night Football. They were peeved that the predetermined matchups were a little like crappy towards the end of the year. Remember that Rams game? I forget who they even played, but when Baker Mayfield came in at the last second.
The Raiders.
Yeah. And it's like both those teams are out of it. But sorry, Jeff. Tough shit. That's what you get for the product that you acquired. But the owners are greedy. And they have decided that they are going to approve. They voted to approve this resolution. These are the full details here. Tweeted out by Ian Rappaport. It's really hard to see, but essentially, membership approved modified scheduling policy for short weeks in connection with the Thursday Night Football package. And given that Thursday Night Football is the only primetime package without flexible scheduling, the membership also wishes to apply flexible scheduling and or TBD scheduling for Thursday Night Football on the trial basis. Okay, so it's on a trial basis, but they're doing this for this calendar year after already announcing the schedule. And Mike Florio, who's always all over this kind of crap, tweeted out that, and I just lost it, that essentially, like, there's something incredibly perverse, if I can find his tweet here, about the NFL announcing this after they have already made this huge big deal about the schedule. Meaning, like, the schedule, it's a suggestion. And if you buy tickets for it now, like we're encouraging you here, Pro Football Talk, there's something extra irritating about the league making TNF flexing effective for 2023 after they unveiled the full schedule without it 11 days ago and encouraged people to buy their tickets right away. So what this does is that if you buy a ticket for an NFL game in advance, it says, screw you, we could decide, even though you have your hotel and your flight paid for and you've planned for this in advance, because it's a better matchup later in the year, we're going to put it on Thursday Night Football to appease Jeff Bezos. Let alone let alone the abuse of the players' bodies who might now have to play 2 short week games in a calendar year when they've already discussed how horrible it is on their bodies and how horrible it is for them in terms of their health. So it's abusive to the fans who are giving you your product to see your games in person, and it's abusive to the players whose bodies are not going to be ready, all in favor of appealing to the streaming executives. Bottom line. And it was not even close. The vote was like 24-8, 24-6. I'm not sure who abstained here. Again, this is a breaking story.
Just seems like
they needed 24 and got 24 exactly. The teams that voted against, sorry.
Okay, go ahead.
Giants, please. Jets, Packers, Bears. Giants, of course, makes sense because Mara's been leading the charge against this. Giants, Jets, Packers, Bears, Raiders, Detroit, Bengals, Steelers voted against the measure, according to Adam Schefter. Amazon Prime, which streams on Thursday games, gets only 2 flexes during the weeks of 13 to 17. Okay, so it's modified. The flexes must be done with 28 days of advance notice, and teams cannot play 2 away Thursday night football games this season. So it's not as bad as initially suspected, but they're good. Like, this is the kind of thing where we talk about abortion bans on the show, or, you know, like, well, we're just going to leave it to the states.
It's a compromise. You know, a 12-week ban as an example. Like a 12-week ban is a compromise proposal. Like
Until
this is a trial run. It's like a trial. Is a trial run if it's almost guaranteed to be enacted?
Yeah.
Is it still a trial run?
But still, I mean, so the original proposal was a 15-day notice. That's when Mara called it abusive. Now it's 28 days. But people are buying tickets and plane tickets and tickets for games more than a month in advance. Are you kidding me? The greed of the NFL knows no bounds.
No, not at all. It's every proposal can basically be all of this language. Whereas, resolved, or whatever. It's basically all it boils down to is whereas, resolved. Our piece of the pie gets bigger.
Yep. All right. Well, that's that breaking story there. Last story here before we leave. So we actually had a viewer write in on the Majority Report about this story, how there was a fan who went to a PSG football game in France and was wearing this jersey. It's the jersey for a Chilean football team, but it's called Club Deportivo Palestino. It's a team in Chile. And you might say, like, why is there a Palestino team? Palestinian. Why would that be in Chile? But apparently in Chile, there's this, like, very large diaspora community of Palestinians who moved there in, like, at the beginning of when Israeli settlers started there, and they were pushed out. And they moved to Chile and some other South American communities. And so there's a team that has a Palestinian flag on it, Palestinian colors. And this fan here named Musai Zenedine, I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing it. A lot of these articles were in different languages that I had to translate. But he was wearing the jersey to this PSG game and got kicked out. Here's some footage of that.
Je vais sortir parce que le de la Palestine. Elle a pris mon maillot, frérot. Elle a pris mon maillot. C'est le conflit.
Kicked out by security. Now, what they have maintained is that, you know, we're kicking out people wearing other jerseys. That doesn't seem to be the case. There were other people apparently there who had other teams' jerseys on. Either way, I don't agree with that policy at all. You can wear whatever the hell you want if you want to go to a stadium.
Per the Club Deportivo Palestino Twitter account, they tweeted, we contacted Musi Zinedine, who has had our shirt since April. Unfortunately, there is no explanation for what happened. There were more fans with shirts other than the local club, but only he was sent off.
Which makes sense, given the fact that there have been other incidents of people trying to tear down, or security tearing down Palestinian flags in at different football, soccer matches throughout Europe. And it just is an indication of how widespread the efforts are to suppress Palestinian liberation, how widespread those efforts are. and how that consensus is not just like we can get really bogged down in talking about the right-wing Israeli lobby here in the United States, but I mean, Israel as being an extension of Western influence in the Middle East is not just singularly connected to the United States. It's also European countries, and that's, I think, a good way to look at power in this instance, is that people feel threatened by the concept of Palestinian liberation because it's an anti-colonial, anti-settler colonial ideology, and that threatens Western powers broadly. But this wasn't even a Palestinian soccer team that was being represented. It's the Chilean Palestino town that does support Palestine, and they did, I think, wear something in remembrance of the 75 years ago, the Nakba.
Yeah.
So I saw people bringing up that the owner of PSG is Qatari, so it can't be anti-Muslim, but I mean, the Qatar says it supports Palestine, but doesn't really, because they're going a little bit more towards where the West is, where the money is, and
I would describe their human rights record as spotty.
Oh yeah, and also, I mean, I don't think the owner made this directive right away. I just think that there's instructions for a lot of these security forces, just no Palestinian stuff.
If this is supposedly controversial or divisive or whatever the case may be, they can use any sort of broad rationale to be yeah, we had to remove the guy. It was a divisive shirt.
There's a divisive shirt.
Yeah, or I that's my speculation. I'm not saying that's what happened, but I'm saying there are any number of ways to fit in. We're not allowing anyone to show that they're supporting Palestine to be shoehorned into it was distracting. It was a diversion from the game or something. He wasn't even wearing a shirt of the team that was playing. Any number of reasons to sort of wish away why they would do something like this when they were pretty clearly only removing this guy from wearing this jersey.
Yeah, and we should say there's a strong anti-Muslim kind of sentiment in France.
Football has it spans many countries, many regions. There is a severe amount of racism across many different fan bases. Racism, ethno-nationalism, bigotry across many. It's not, of course, and don't get me wrong, this is not individual to soccer fan bases, but it's relatively pronounced in certain fan bases among soccer, especially recently. I don't know if you saw this, Emma, but Vinicius Jr., who is a Brazilian player, he's a Brazilian player on Real Madrid, who has been in La Liga, the Spanish championship, the Spanish tournament, has been for the last 5 or 6 months just viciously jeered at and mocked by players, by fans of other Spanish clubs, throwing bananas on the
Jesus.
throwing bananas on the pitch, chanting "mono, mono, mono," meaning monkey, towards him.
Are you serious?
And this has been investigated by inspectors general in the sport and outside of the sports, who have basically given license to them to this type of bigotry and this type of racism because it's operating within the context of fan culture.
Wow.
That it's permissible.
Well, you know what else was operating in this?
Yeah.
Him wearing the jersey
right,
that he
so
wants.
interesting what is permissible under the guise of being a fan and being able to viciously mock and viciously yell racist slurs at a Brazilian ethnically Brazilian black player, throw bananas at him, chant monkey at him. He was crying on the pitch recently because he has been so savagely attacked over and over again for the last 5 or 6 months during this tournament but as you said, this guy wears a jersey in solidarity with the Palestinians. 75 years of the Nakba for a Chilean team that supports Palestinian liberation. He gets removed from the stadium. It's not 1-to-1, but they're not removing those. They're not removing multiple fan bases en masse who are throwing bananas at and calling a black player a monkey, and literally arms of the state, arms of the arms of the federation are saying, our hands are tied. They're fans of the sport. They're cheering against a rival.
Unreal.
interesting how certain things can be shoehorned into other certain things. That's distracting potentially. That's an issue for that team's fans or whatever. We can't have that guy wearing that jersey. It's a little, it's a little too much. But hey, the guys calling Vinicius a monkey, they're cheering for their team. They're just passionate.
I want one of those Palestino Club Deportivo Palestino.
Yeah, I like them.
Me too. Solidarity with
But
Palestine.
solidarity with Palestine, solidarity with Vinicius Jr. Fuck La Liga for not protecting that guy.
And don't let anyone tell you that supporting Palestine is racist. It is an anti-racist or bigoted, or anti-Semitic. The real bigotry is what we see in the treatment of the Palestinians who are in an open-air prison and are being subjugated on a daily basis.
Yeah. That's
an anti-brown racism that's rooted in colonialism. This has nothing to do with anti-Semitism. It does not. It does not. We combat anti-Semitism regularly on this program. This is about, it's not anti-Muslim to call out Saudi Arabia's human rights abuses.
It's not anti-American to call it America's human rights abuses.
Right. Exactly. So that's that. All right, guys, we're going to wrap up the show here. Going to hang up the phones, read some of the IMs that we have left to get out of here. Dan from Columbus, is Bezos going to buy an NFL team at some point? Curious how that would work with Prime streaming, like if it'd be the Braves being always on TBS because they were owned by Ted Turner, or if the league would block him from doing that. The league does not have an ethical problem with Jeff Bezos owning a team, I will say. I'll just go out on a limb and say they'll see that green and be like, let's go.
If it's not the Commanders because Dan Snyder has an axe to grind with the Washington Post, it could be another team.
And honestly, I don't even know how serious Bezos' bid was for that. I mean, Bezos might want to be like, because the Seahawks are up for sale in a few years.
And
he's
Seattle.
from Seattle.
Right.
Yeah, and Amazon, right. Like Amazon's from Seattle.
Yeah, the
right?
headquarters is in Seattle. Yeah,
just making sure I wasn't saying that. Yeah,
part of Seattle is basically like an Amazon campus.
I just had a total brain fart there, but yeah, I think that there's some speculation that he might want to acquire the Seahawks, but it's like, I don't know, dude. Just do something else with your time.
Leave our sports
please,
alone.
you touch every other part of our lives. Just. Dude, put your billions in something else.
The most cursed ownership partnership in Seattle, of Howard Schultz and Jeff Bezos purchasing the Seahawks.
The planet would just fall into like a black hole.
It would be like they change their name to like the Seattle Promise.
Union Busters.
The Seattle Scabs.
The Seattle Pinkertons. Dan from Columbus, hot take, flopping is a part of the game. Some of it does look ridiculous, but if you don't react, you don't always get a call that you potentially deserve. I was always bad at reacting, and when I'd get smacked and never got calls. I actually agree. I mean, drawing penalties is like a big thing in hockey, too.
Yeah,
and
that's what I was just trying to say with like guys like Harden, Trae Young, or CP3 or whatever. Is like they're literally just like, like part of the game is like sort of bending the rules to like your will.
Yeah.
Sort of. And like that's just like how it happens. It happens in all sports, I think, in one way or the other.
And the final IM of this episode of ESVN. J-Man raps, the Spurs conspiracy sounds fun. Also, all of the Rangers' top players should leave because they haven't won anything. McDavid is 26. Jordan will never won until he was 26. God forbid we have great players in Canada. Emma, love the show. All right, well, I'm just trying to speak it into existence.
Yeah. It's a fair point because right, MJ was 26 in 1989, but I don't know. I just like it's like Mike Trout with the Angels and Shohei with the Angels. I'm just like desperate for these like amazing once in a generation players to not be like toiling in obscurity.
Agreed. All right, guys, appreciate you all. We will see you next week. Bye bye.
Bye bye.